welcome to the final episode in my Childhood Heroes series. So I've got 3 or 4 guitar players here on the list, that one of whom definitely deserves a complete episode, but I cannot find enough backing tracks for him, nor am I really good enough. It's Rory Gallagher. We'll talk a bit about him in a minute. So struggling to get backing tracks for him. The other players are the country guys. I once had a guy I used to work with years ago, and we're playing guitar, or I was playing guitar, and he said, "It's funny, Paul, everything you played, the blues, rock, Dire Straits, it all sounds like country to me." And I always remembered that. In other words, country playing and country techniques are so deeply ingrained in my playing that you forget I'm all about picking fingers and things like that. Anyway, so that little opening jam was a kind of mishmash of Jerry Donahue, or my interpretation of Jerry Donahue. There's no way I could ever be good enough to try do him justice. So Jerry Donahue. Albert Lee was a huge fascination for me as a young guitar player. Arlen Roth taught me so much with these tuition tapes. I don't know if you remember Arlen Roth. He was one of the first guitar teachers who took the teaching thing seriously and brought out not DVDs. This was before DVDs. This was tape decks, TDK, BASF tapes in your machine, and the Hot Licks videotapes. So he was part of that. And Brent Mason, of course, dominated modern country music in terms of session work. His guitar playing is stunning, and there's just no way I could ever emulate him. So that little opening jam was a little bit of everybody kind of thrown in. So some of this behind the nut bends kind of, that's very Jerry Donahue. I mean, he's much more accurate. He can go from that to that. There we go. But he can go from that to this. It takes a lot of discipline and accuracy for that. He also did things like this. He would go, imagine an F chord, right? Then he traps the B string. So I'm bending the G down. So now I've got 2 strings under the one finger to resolve to the F. He would even go. As you can see, I've not achieved that. So Jerry Donahue was amazing. It's incredibly sad, his current situation. He's had a really, really bad stroke, and it's doubtful he'll ever play guitar again. So pretty tragic, but his playing, to watch him, the best thing to do is type in to YouTube, Twang Bang Kerrang, Jerry Donahue. And he plays the claw. Jerry reads the claw. I won't even try to do it justice, but it's that when he goes he takes it. I mean, Jerry Reed wrote it, another amazing player. But Jerry Donahue took it to the next level and did all these behind the nut things, and wonderful player. So I was fascinated by him. Albert Lee. All of that was inspired by Albert Lee. Arlen Roth was just fantastic for me, because I learned everything by ear, and so I had my suspicions of what he was doing, but then to have him come along on a tape and say, what I do is I have this and I will go and I'll play it on these strings because the tone is better there than there, and I was like, that's what I do, that's what I thought you did, because so it validated everything I learned as a kid. Who else is on my list? Yeah, and Brent Mason's he's a machine, incredible. That opening jam is full of moments where I'm sure you would say, Paul, you're rushing that bit. That bit's rushed. It's not. You know how, what's his name? Tom Bukovac talks about when you're a session player, it's so important to be in time. He calls it, you know, in the pocket, man. If you're not in the pocket, so you've got to be in the groove, in time. You've got to be relaxed and sitting in the beat, immersed in it and part of it, and to be in the pocket. I'm not in the pocket when I try and emulate these country fast players. I have little moments, but you can just imagine the pressure as a session player getting the word down the headphones. Paul, I don't think you were quite in the pocket on verses 3 and 4 there. Fuck off! You know, I could see how people could walk out of sessions. But thankfully I don't have to do that because I'm just not good enough to be that kind of player. Anyway, yes, Arlen Roth. I learned so much from Arlen Roth because he came at such an important age for me. I think I would have been about, I don't know, 12, 13, maybe 13 years old. And learned all of this kind of thing from Arlen Roth. This. So leaving the G string, which is the flat 7 of, if you're in A, G is the 7th, the flat 7. But also not quite taking that finger off from the previous part of the lick. So you get this, as Tom Bukovac would say, a half-step rub. So you get this dissonance between the flat 7 and this 4th fret of the D string. What's that, the 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, the 6 and the flat 7 should never be together, but they are together. Was wonderful for me. Now we'll save the best for last. Rory Gallagher. I hold him up there in the highest esteem. I wish I could have done a whole episode for him, but I just could not find enough good backing tracks, and I'm not good enough. I can emulate little bits like all this kind of all that stuff, but then he goes into these little jigs that are just wonderful. So charming, and I can't do them. But I can do a few things from him, so I wish I could have done a couple of things from the Irish 74 tour, like Million Miles Away. Love all that stuff. With his beaten up strap. See, that's stuff I can't do. And you're no point in trying it if you can't do it. And I've practiced for 51 years now, and 51 years is long enough to say I've tried, well, I was playing guitar at age 12, 35, 37 years I've tried. But he's brilliant, let's face it. If you don't know who Rory Gallagher is, you've got to check him out. And the one album, your go-to starting point would be the Irish Live in 74. That image of his beaten up Strat leaning against, whoa, no wonder my guitars have chips. Leaning against was it a Bassman or a Vox or something, a torn up old Vox or a torn up old Bassman. That image, oh, what an image. So that's Rory Gallagher. Check him out. All these false harmonics and scruffy guitar playing, but charming at the same time. And then these little jigs. Listen to Walk on Hot Coals, the sort of outro solo for that is incredible. Is there a better guitar player on the earth than Rory? It's like he plugged himself into the amp. He's just incredible. And I'm not a big pedal aficionado. And I think that's because I love listening to Roy Buchanan and Rory Gallagher and early Eric Clapton and stuff, where pedals really weren't around so much. There was treble boosters and things like that, but just guitar into amp with very little in between really appeals to my romantic, nostalgic idea of my guitar heroes. I'm starting to babble now. Hope you've enjoyed the series. I've loved making the series, but in some ways it's good to push it behind me again and get almost trying to be me again, being Paul Cook style. But that's where my style came from, listening to all of these people. I don't think I've missed anybody off my list. I've got a whole bunch of modern day heroes like Joe Bonamassa and Robin Ford, but this series is about my childhood heroes. So these were my childhood go-to guys. Maybe I'll do one on my current heroes. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me rabbit on in this one, and we'll see you on the next vid. Bye for now.